On this year's edition of the Dakar, those in front aren't necessarily the most active on the roads. Juan de Bort clinched a third stage win in Sunday's Bolivian ride through the Salta desert. In the meantime, on four wheels, Carlos Sainz bid farewell to Argentina with a first stage win this year in Salta. The motorbike category was lacking a bit of flavour, so they added a pinch of salt. Stage 8 in this 2014 Dakar took the riders around the gorgeous Uyuni salt flats in Bolivia, where Cyril Desprez finally found his stride. No spin through Bolivia for the cars, but a tricky ride through the Andes. An unusual environment for Nasser Al-Attiyah, but not enough to stop him from shining. Situated at 3,600 metres above sea level, the small Bolivian town of Uyuni is no ski resort, but neighbour to one of the most fascinating sites in the world, the Salar, or Salt Flats. The Dakar riders were not, however, here to sightsee, but to compete in a 462-kilometre stage around this lunar landscape. Unfortunate in the first week, Cyril Desprez had set his sights on this special stage. 2.5 hours adrift in the overall standings, and with nothing to lose, the Frenchman cruises through the stage at an average speed of 80 km an hour to claim a much-needed win for morale. The idea is not to chase stage victories, but to come back to the front of the race. Today, whilst I was trying to reduce that gap, I won the stage. It's good. I'm happy. Behind, Mark Comer keeps a close eye on his countryman and #1 rival Juan de Bort. The current leader reaches Calama 6 seconds behind the one they called Bang Bang, who remains firmly in second place despite losing 10 minutes to Desprez on Monday. Meanwhile, Jordi Villodom seems intent on keeping hold of his place on the overall podium and settles for 10th in Calama. Further down the road, David Casteu grinds his way to 19th despite a fractured collarbone, but disappears from the top 10 in the overall standings. No Bolivia for the cars on this Dakar, but a no less gorgeous ride through the Andes from east to west. After a 500-kilometre liaison, Carlos Sainz storms ahead on board his buggy for 2.5 hours of sandy and rocky roads on his way to the finish line at the heart of the Atacama Desert. But in the desert, one man is in his favourite playground, Nasser Al-Attiyah. Behind the wheel, the Qatari pushes his Mini to the limit and takes the upper hand in the last hour, covering over 150 kilometres. No one can catch him, not even Nani Roma, forced to change a wheel halfway through the stage. Today was tough, with 2 tyre punctures. We lost some time, but that's the way it goes. The Spaniard loses 9 minutes on his teammate and 8 on Stefan Peterancel. After a disappointing first week, Mr. Dakar is back on track and still dreaming of a 6th title. With only 23 minutes separating him from Roma, all bets are off. After his buggy's recurring electronic problems in the first week, Carlos Sainz is also very much still in contention, following some quality driving on Monday. The Spaniard completes the podium in this stage, whilst Giniel de Villiers loses precious minutes in his duel with Orlando Terranova. The Toyota rider will have to shine in the dunes. Cyril Desprez claims his first stage win in this 2014 edition, but remains a long way away from the Spanish Armada in the overall standings, as Mark Comer, Juan de Bort and Jordi Villodom remain in the top 3. Frenchman Alain Duclos remains 4th, but sees the gap with the leaders increase. In the car category, 4 Minis are in the top 5 places. Carlos Sainz trails just behind the German contingent, but remains over 2 hours adrift of leader Nani Roma. Stefan Peterancel is closing in, whilst Giniel de Villiers remains 3rd. For the first time in history, Bolivia is hosting the Dakar in a magnificent environment and with plenty of popular support. Thousands of fans from the Potosi region converged to Uyuni to support their countryman Juan Carlos Salvatierra, motorcycling world champion and a true local hero. It's an unbelievable feeling. I couldn't have dreamt of all this. It's one of the most moving feelings I've ever had. An unforgettable moment for the Bolivian on this Dakar. Tuesday will see drivers and riders alike travel 459 kilometres from the mountains of Calama to the coast and the city of Iquique, 3,400 metres downhill all the way to one of the most breathtaking landscapes on this Dakar, the Pacific Ocean. But before this ride to the seaside, here are a few mineral souvenirs from the mountains.